Okay, so good afternoon. Thanks for joining. Those of us that are in, there'll probably be others popping in as the session gets along. I'm going to walk you through an agenda I've put together to give an overview of what's come along in new features in the 2017 release. That's going to be Maximizer version 15, but the branding of it will be Max 2017. And we'll cover the larger stuff that I think you'll notice. There's other little things that they've attended to that won't make it into this particular webinar. There's a fairly comprehensive booklet of all the new features that have come up. This set of features will be what's different between version 2016 and what's in 2017. So if you're on a much older version, there could be many things that are missing from this webinar for you. I know there's a number of people from one of our larger clients on the call from Canada, and they're on an older version. So certainly there's tons of features that we're not going to talk about, but we're keeping it focused on what's new in this version because a large portion of the client base would appreciate that. I'm going to start with the basics and then get into some specific areas where the vendor focused their attention. I guess the first thing that I will lead with is that they've actually done a redesign of the interface for the first time in many years. I guess the philosophy has been, if it isn't broken, don't fix it. And they've done a great job of maintaining consistency year in and year out. It makes it easier to learn the new versions and pick things up. They actually got some feedback from clients that, oh yeah, the new version doesn't look any different than the old version, even though they had put a lot of work into it. So this one is going to both work differently and it will perform differently. And it will actually cosmetically look differently. So they've changed the colors, they've changed the icons, they've tried to put things in a more logical order. They've still kept the interface fairly minimal. They don't want to overclutter the screen. And I guess by navigating through it, you'll be able to see the changes. But the color scheme and the font layouts are the first obvious things that have been updated in our interface. As a user of the system, I do a lot of tracking of notes and history in the product. So I'm going to go to the history tab for a customer, and I'm going to just put a new piece of history in here on Roger. So this is a new note on Roger. I'm sending it in, and the note goes in there. What's new in this interface is they've pulled the show all out in the history tab. So now if I just want to see Roger's notes, I can easily do it. Something that actually drove me crazy because the other versions prior had made me jump in here and set that feature, which people just couldn't remember to do. So typically you would set your filter here once, and then that'll be how it will be forever, and then you can jump in and out of show all as you see fit. So small but very helpful feature, particularly if you're dealing with a large list of contacts. So if I move to a different contact and check show all, it will show whatever notes are on that person. So Marcos has some notes, Roger has some notes, and maybe even the company. Nope, the company has nothing. I check show all and they're all visible. So that was one that I appreciated them putting in. Another thing that they've done will affect you on startup. So for a large majority of the users of Maximizer, they open up the system and they go straight to the address book. And there's always been a preference where you could set it and say, hey, when I'm opening up Maximizer, always open to the address book and open up my, fill in the blank, a certain search, my last list, my favorite list, whatever it might be. These settings lived under startup, and they still do. And you can still pick any of the modules that you want to jump into. But let's say you were somebody that used customer service a lot. You were a support person, you wrote tickets all day. So the service module or the opportunity module or some other area of the system is the area of focus. You could now change that to open up to what you want. And down here, you can specify what opens up. So for people who use the opportunity module, we've had some complaints because the default behavior in past versions was to pull up all in-progress opportunities. And for any given sales rep, that worked out all right. But what if you were the sales manager and there were I don't know, 3,000 or 4,000 opportunities in the list. You had to wait for the list to build before you could start doing your stuff. So they've changed it. They basically said you can set the window that you want to open, and then you can determine that it opens up empty. It goes to a current view of opportunities, of certain favorite lists, a certain search, and that way you're able to get the records that you want quickly. And you may have predefined search button set up under quick access, as I have in the top left here. You may have a defined search that you always want to run. Whatever works for you, that's what's going to pop up in this setup. So for people in support, they may say only open cases that belong to me. And that would just limit the amount that you have to look at when you come in. So those features are new, and it fixes some problems for people that have a lot of data.
When you open it up.
And then I will go over here to, I'm going to set my current cases on the customer service. And then I'll just pull up customer service, and here I have to actually go to my preferences and let customer service show up. There we go. And now it'll only pull up the view that I want to see here. There we go.
Right.
So these are my cases by default. I don't have any assigned, so it's not going to give me any.
But you couldn't do that in the web version, but you can.
Question? Because I'm hearing a little talking, but I wasn't sure if it's directed at me. Can you hear me?
Yeah, why don't you mute everybody?
Okay, I can mute you guys. If you want, I think there's a way to raise your hand or just chat, and I will open it up. Okay, so I'm going to continue. Zach, we're still good? You can hear? Okay, great. So I'm going to go back to the address book. And just a comment, we support Edge now. So we support 4 browsers today. We have Internet Explorer, Edge, which is the new Internet Explorer in Chrome. In Windows 10, we support Chrome, and we support Firefox. This demo is being conducted in Chrome. The Edge system does not integrate with the Word plugin yet. You still need IE for that. I'm hoping that changes in the near future. And then we've done something with the quick search up here that I think you'll like. So traditionally, you could type a bit of a name of a company. So if I wrote estate, anything with the word estate in it would come up. Okay, so these are 2 people that have estate. You'll notice one is a company and one is a contact underneath the company. So this is the list of company and people below it. See if I can get a better view here. Yeah, so there's Rolando works under this company. And some people have said to us, well, you know, when I do a search, I only want to pull up the company. I don't want to see all those contacts mixed in, because sometimes it's a very large list. So they've given you the ability to pick what type of records you're looking after. So I'm going to switch it to company, and I'm going to do the same lookup of estate, and it's going to restrict it to just the company. And I could swing it over and do just contacts or whatever, but this gives us a pretty broad flexibility. The other thing that I've got here is it's searching on the company name. First, in the case of a company, the company name and the address and phone numbers. So if I put in road and the word road comes up in some of these people's addresses, you would see it show up here. That's kind of helpful. If I do contacts, then we're looking at first name, last name. So if I do Johnson, I'll get all the people and company. You know, so some of the folks in this list, her name isn't Johnson, but she's on Johnson Road, whatever it might be. So they've allowed you to pick which of these that you want. And I think down at the bottom, the opportunities in the customer service cases, for people using service cases, you can look it up by case number. So if I say 33, anything that has a 33 in it would pull up. There might be a couple of cases that have that. And it gives me a lookup. So in this case, there's a restriction here. We've got the case number, and then maybe in the objective or some other element, we have 3 3s in this. There it is. In the description, there's a 33. So it pulls up this record. So you can quickly search for description, subject, or case number and pull up cases that relate to that. I think that's going to be popular with people that live outside of the address book. Okay, any questions on those little things that they put in from an interface perspective? Oh, and I'm going to unmute you. Sorry about that. Any questions?
No?
Okay, so moving right along. Your calendar has been redesigned. So they've taken a lot of time to build out a different and new calendar. So I'm going to move over to the calendar. And here's a month view. I'm looking at 5 or 6 people's calendars spread out over the month of November. Here we are today. The events that are in the past have a line through them. The events that are a different color, this color, purple or blue, whatever here, that's me. I'm the first one. If I uncheck this, you'll see all my events go away. All the other colors are other people in the organization who are currently in my view. I could uncheck Wanda and you'll see those light blue ones go away. So the things that they've done besides a full redesign, so this whole side panel here is different than what you've seen. They allow you to check and uncheck all, which I think they had in the past. They've got the ability to set your preferences right from here. So you can move in and out and say, oh, I want to look at, you know, Sunday through Monday. Okay, I can include Sunday in the week view if I want to. I can change the start and end time of the day, and that would affect how the week looks. You know, where's the starting point, where's the ending point of the day. So they've moved a lot of stuff right in here so you don't have to jump out to preferences in order to set it. And I'm going to go back to my month view, and I'll add a couple of appointments of different types that they've added that I think will be useful. So besides the design elements, they've added the concept for all-day appointments. So if I go here on the 8th, and I'm going to add an appointment, I can say I have an off-site visit, off-site meeting, trade show, something like that, and it's an all-day event. So I check that out. It pushes the times out of the way. I have the ability to invite other people, so I'm going to put customer in on this. I just start typing Smith, and all the Smiths come up. The Smiths would come up whether they're a user or a contact. I would get a list under different groupings. So let's see if I can put, see, I've got these guys here. Who's a user? Jones is a user. Lou Jones and Wanda White. So see Wanda White, she comes up. So I can invite one of my coworkers and then one of the customers, if I spell Smith correctly. There it is. And take Robert. So now I've got a meeting with an employee, a customer, and myself. I'm going to save it. And it will send out an email. I'm going to say no notice because that's not a new feature, but it would email a notification off. So there's my event. And let's go into a different view. So I'm going to move to the day view and get to the 8th. It puts the all-day events at the top. So it just moves them out of the way into the all-day time. That way they're not blocking anything. If I try to put an event in here, so let's say I say lunch, and I'm going to save it. It's going to tell me I have an issue. So in the old days, we had pop-up after pop-up after pop-up. This conflicts with this meeting. This conflicts with that. This conflicts with that. It got to be unproductive to see one pop-up after another. So they'll list all the stuff that you can possibly conflict with. And then you can either click schedule to push it over the top, or you can click resolve, and it'll tell you some other time slots at work. Like if you do it really early in the morning or later at night or a different day, you know, you can pick what works. So if I say, if I want to use this conflict resolution, then I would just pick the time that they recommend, and it'll move the meeting. If I just click schedule, it would push it over the top of that one. So if I go to the 9th, I now have a meeting. My lunch is there. Okay, so I'm going to go out to the week view. And there's the lunch. And again, if I move it over here, it accepts it because it's showing me that I've got the offsite, and I'm just choosing to do that. I can still drag and drop. And I think I still have many of the same features that you got accustomed to in the old version. They've just spruced up things, and hopefully you can see more on the screen the way they've laid it out. Now, the other thing that I'd want to show you is that they have a concept for multi-day appointments. So if I come here and let's go to a week where I'm not as busy. Here we go. I've got an open Monday. I'm going to add an appointment and I'll set the end date sometime later. So instead of doing a recurring, I'm going to say I'll end over here at maybe middle of the day. Okay, so it's 9 a.m. to 12:30 on the 16th. And I have to put a subject in, so this will be a seminar. And I'll click save. And then it pushes it across. So it doesn't block out the time, but it's a set amount of time. So kind of like a recurring meeting, but it doesn't have to block out every day. It sticks it all up there because it covers multiple days. So we have the concept of an all-day meeting, and we have the concept of a multi-day meeting. And we've also got the ability to see those conflicts and try to schedule them without a million pop-ups. The last little bit that I find very helpful is if your job is to assign appointments for someone else, you've always been able to come up here and jump onto their calendar and put it on there. But let's say I need to put something on Joe's calendar. So I'm here on Monday, and Joe says, yeah, book me for 11 o'clock with somebody, Mr. Johnson at whatever company it might be. So this is going to be a Johnson meeting. And I'm going to change the organizer here from me to Joe. Okay, now it's Joe's meeting. So Joe's going to be busy until 11:45. I click on the attendees. I find Johnson. Let's say it's Tommy Johnson, and then I click save. It can send out a notification, which I probably would do in this case because it's not going to me. But since I don't know whose email addresses these are, I'm going to say don't. And then you click OK, and the meeting is there with the color of the user, Joe Napoli. So just a more quick way for you to add an event for someone else. Okay, so I'm assigning an appointment for another user much more quickly and more easily using that method. And the last view that I wanted to show you was what's called an agenda view. So when I click on the agenda view, this is kind of a list view of what you've got going on for the week of the 14th. And each week that you go to, it'll show you your different stuff. And every one of these views, whether you're in the agenda view, the week view, the month view, you can print them into a report. So this report here, calendar view, will print out what you're seeing on the screen. Okay, so I'm going to pop up this PDF, and that's the view for the week view. Now let's say I go into the agenda view. Then that same report will print what there it is. Print the agenda view. So you end up getting a lot of reports out of this because any combination of view will show up as a report, whether you do the monthly over, the desktop blotter or a list view, you'll be able to see that in a printout in a PDF. Okay, one last thing. I'm going to switch over to tasks down here. And this is a request that people had to be able to enter a hot list task right from the calendar. So you can now enter a hot list task directly from the calendar. Okay, I'm going to unmute. Any questions around the calendar?
Yeah, John. Could you just, there are a bunch of icons at the bottom of the calendar.
Mm-hmm. You're talking down here?
No. I guess it was when you were entering in an appointment.
Yes, okay, so let me open up an appointment, then you'll be able to see that. So I'm going to go to, I'll just make a meeting here. So I'll add a meeting. So the calendar is going to open up like this.
Yep. Yeah.
Now, if you don't touch anything and just put in meeting info, and then click OK, you make a meeting.
I was just wondering what those icons were, if you could just mouse over them so we could quickly see them.
Attendees is you're inviting people. As soon as you click it, it'll punch out and let you do it. The organizer is set once. Once you set this, it won't let you do it again. The alarm, I
Okay,
mean,
so alert.
recurring is a repeated appointment. This is the recurrence patterns.
So my question is, because this offers alerts, where you might have a more robust alert system through Outlook, is it still best to initiate your appointments in Outlook?
That's a complicated thing. The advantage of initiating an appointment in Outlook, in my mind, is not related to the alerts. It's related to Outlook's RSVP process. So this system will send out an email with an invite, but it won't do anything if the person responds back. Whereas Outlook, so if you do meetings and you have a hard time keeping track of who's coming to them, Outlook does a great job of that. A lot of internal meetings are like that. If you're booking meetings with clients,
but Outlook, you can set up text messaging and other types of reminders.
Right, and I'm not even aware of that, to be perfectly honest. So if that works for you, then that would be something else that Outlook does. We certainly don't have text messages as a reminder. We do have email. So you can include the customer in both the notification when it first gets created and the reminder that pops out X number of hours before the meeting happens.
So it still has the Outlook integration?
Yep.
Okay.
And that's not changed, so I didn't make it a big part of this demo. I do have Outlook running in the background here if we want to take a look at it. But the feature set that we're looking at here, let me just go over the icons because I think it's a reasonable question. Repeat is the recurring pattern. Again, organizer and recurrence you can only set once. Once you set it, it's a recurring meeting or not. You can't add it or edit that later. You can delete it and make a new one. Alarms come in two forms. One is an alarm that will ring in the product out of the side panel, and the other is a email that goes out X number of hours before the meeting. That you can change at any time. Resources isn't used that frequently, but things like projector, marketing materials, trade show stuff, that could go there. You've got the priority, high, medium, and low. You've got the products and services and the categories. So if you never click on those and don't use them a lot, they don't take up space in the dialog. That was the big gain of using this approach, is that you don't have to have a gigantic window if you're not using all those features.
Now, you hit upon categories, and this may be out of order a little bit, but in the notes and in the documents, the old system gave you the ability to apply a category to them. Is that still there?
That's still there, and it's still not this one. This is the categories that you see in the drop-down of the appointments, the cases, and the opportunities.
Right. That's okay. I just want to make sure the category was still in the other places.
If you do a lookup here, let's say you type ABC and you do not get what you want. See how it's not bringing anything up? There's an advanced button here, and this is the old method of lookups. So I can look up by company, ABC, and search. And then I pull up, I guess this one, click OK, and now I've created the event. Whoops, I pulled too many in. 4C is on ABC Boulevard or something. That's why it came up in there. So I'll save this, and I will not save the location. So that ends up being bang on the appointment there for whoever's read. Okay, any other questions around the calendar? There was one other thing. Oh, from the address book, they have subdued this side panel. So if you see this thing go red and blink, that means you have an alarm. You can always click it to see what's in it, and you can pin it. So if you have a large enough monitor where you can afford the space, you could just leave the side panel open all the time. If you're dealing with a screen such as mine, you'd probably rather push it away because it takes up physical space that you might not want to give up. Okay, great. I'm going to move on to the opportunity module. I'm going to mute people again, and then I'll unmute you for questions. So the opportunities, they've added a wrinkle to how they're tracking the stages of the opportunity. Traditionally, you'd set up a series of stages, and I'm going to open up an opportunity right now. So typically, you would have an opportunity here, and the opportunity would have a certain stage, 1 through 10 or whatever it might be. But it didn't allow you to switch, because some sales you might have 4 stages, and some sales you might have 11 stages, and some companies have many sales processes where they have a few stages for one and a lot for another. So in this version, you're able to have multiple processes. So I've got a default process and I've got a renewal process. There are actually different drop-downs in each, with different durations and different likelihoods or percentages. So for people who are selling maybe a product and a service, you might have one for your products, one for your services. You might have another one for your renewals, one for net new customers. And I'm thinking that even if you were using opportunities for something other than sales, you could now use this to track many different processes and associate different percentages and different timelines to a different sales effort. So if you're selling a big ticket thing, it may take longer and more steps than a small ticket thing. And this is all done. I'm going to cancel out of here in your administrator. So if I go to this module here, I can see a series of preferences, and one of the preferences is opportunities. Whoops, I've got to log back into it, sorry. So you'll come into your administrator, it'll look like this, and then over here under opportunities, they've added an element for processes and stages. So I'm going to just expand the renewal one just so you can see it. Renewal has a name, and under it, it has a stage called notify, being the first step. And you put in a likelihood and an amount of time that it will take. So I'm contemplating that in the renewal process, notification is simple as an email. So at the very first stage, you don't have any chance of close because you've got to get this one out, and it shouldn't take you any time at all. That's a perfunctory step. The next step is to follow up with a reminder. If the follow-up has gone out and they haven't said no, then I say that we have a 30% chance of successful sale, and that it's a 2-day process because people take a few days to get back on those emails. And then a few days after that, 3 days after that, 5 days after start date, I have a billing. Once the billing goes out, I'm 3/4 of the way there. And then once they've paid, I close out the opportunity, and that's at 10 days. And by then I expect to have money in, and it's 100%. So that's the creation of a process. If you wanted to add another stage in between, you could always add one, just clicking here, give it a name, give it a percent, fit it in, and it will find its way into your solution. And you can have as many of these as are necessary. So my first default process has more stages and different percentages than my renewal one. And if I created a third or a fourth stage, they likewise would have different words that describe the numbers that describe the terms and the age. Like this one, I put different amounts of days between each. So I'm going to go back to my address book, and I'm going to look at an opportunity here. So this opportunity is using the default process, and I've defined it as being in negotiation. So when you look at the top of the opportunity, it's moved over to this area here, 25 days. And I did this just the other day. I put it into this stage, so it's not aging in real time as it would be in your system. When you put it in, it'll actually start clocking the days. But it gives you a sense of what it's going to look like. You're moving along this bar here, and it will tell you how long it's spent in each of the prior stages. So I think if I look up, I'm going to do a search now. And this is a search on one of the processes that I have. So they've added this to the searches, to the views, to all the elements of the system. So if I come in here and say, I want to look up stage, it says, well, which one do you want to look up? Well, I want to look up an intermediate stage. So I can look up, these are the intermediate stages for this process, and these are the intermediate stages for this one. And I'll say only those that are in progress, and it'll give me some number of records, which then I can check out and say, okay, well, how are we doing on these? And I'll look down the line and look at my different opportunities and see how they're actually progressing. So let's go here and take a look at this one. So I'm looking at quote review. Now I go to budget review. Click OK. And it will move me forward to the next one. The timing of your days is from the day that you first set an opportunity into the process. So if I change this process to notify and I go to follow-up reminder, it'll start right there. That's where it's going to start clocking the time. So it's day 0 on a 2-day process. And tomorrow, the next day, this will say 1, then 2, then it'll start getting late. So I'm going to see if I can find a few that have the stage that I want to show you. I'm going to change my column view into the renewal process. And you see that gap here. So this is a good one. This has been 6 days on the second stage that I said only should take 2. So whenever your age gap is a positive number, that's not a very good thing, because that tells you that it's taking longer than you anticipated. So I'm going to move this one up. It's now been billed. And then I can refresh here. And so it'll move me into the next stage. Now I'm at a negative number because I haven't taken up the full 5 days that I've got. And it'll give me my report card on each stage for this view. So the ones that are in this view, when they're blank, it's just because they're using the other process. But any of those that I have in this process, I'm going to move this one into it, will start clocking on the renewal. And there we go. We click save, and then it'll start putting some numbers in up here. Okay, and as time goes on, I'll be above or below where I'm supposed to be on the timing. So let me pause for a second, see if there are any questions. You guys are off mute. Any questions about the opportunity process?
Hey, John?
Yep.
In the default process, can you rename the default to something else?
I don't think so. I haven't tried it. In fact, let's take a look, because I'm not sure what the answer to that is. I haven't attempted to change the one in this demo, but it won't take long to find out. Typically, they want to know there's going to be one there, so they may resist doing that. But let's see. It'll tell me if I can rename it. So if I come here. It took it.
You can. Okay.
So
right,
I don't know if I have to re-log in, but yeah, it took it.
All right. My second question is, if I'm looking at all the opportunities in that window there, is there any way to bring up the opportunities by rep? So I'm only looking at Chris or Mark or Joe or Mary, whatever.
Let's do one. So I'm going to do an advanced search, and I'm going to do a couple of things at one time. Hopefully, I'm going to pick Lou Jones because he's got a lot of stuff. So I'm going to pick a process, and I'm going to pick a team leader, op leader. So these two. And this I can easily save as a search. So I'm going to say renewals, because I only have 2 processes, and I'm going to say Lou Jones, or Lou Jones and Billy Holly, if they were a team. So I can pull them up, and then I'm only doing in progress. I could do it over a closed date or a range. I'm just going to keep the open ones. And so this is what you're talking about. So I have 5 that fall into this range, and I could put the team, the leader's name in this report. I just chose not to. But I could easily add it. I didn't want to create too much.
Off the top that allows you to say, just give me Joe's. You have to create a search.
Yeah, you'd have to create these buttons is what you would do. You would do exactly what we just did. So let's say this is a meaningful search to me. Then I would catalog it, give it a name, and then give it a button. And then when I press that
John,
button,
if you put their names in a column, then all you have to do is sort them, and you'll have everybody together.
Same difference.
For all of those.
Same thing. Yep. I mean, I've got a lot of
views. It just saves you the time of having to have to do a search.
Yeah. It depends on. I mean, frankly, you could also do a dashboard that showed the bars in each one. So whichever way you want to look at it, This one, reporting fields, I think this is what I wanted to show you, because this will have team leader in it. So this is a similar looking thing. This is the leader here. So they're all Lou Jones. This is just how I'm logged in. I do a lot of these. So you can see some of those fields. I could easily construct the view the way you said it, and it would come out and you'd be able to see them. This one has so many columns, I didn't want to freak people out with the amount of data. This one's a little simpler, and I could just edit this if it was necessary. Okay, and I did this to show you that we can look at a specific, even in the column view, we can look at a specific process and each bucket of each specific process from a timing perspective. The other thing that they added that I'm going to show you here is they have this age field, opportunity age. So they start tracking how old it is. So they're tracking stage ages, but they're also tracking the overall opportunity age. And then you can do a lot of neat things with that because you can create formulas and you can do lookups based on opportunities that have aged beyond 90 days that are still in progress. There's a lot of things you could do that simplify your searches and dashboards. Just makes things quicker. But the attentiveness to detail on the timelines is very important. And this concept of an age is another feature that I'm going to talk about in a minute in the general address book. It's not just in the opportunities. But any other questions around the opportunity manager itself or any of the changes they've made around processes? Okay, I'm going to show you one more time. You can see it in the view. You can also do the lookups based on the process. So if you look up by our stage, it'll expand down to each and every one of the sales processes that you've created. And so you can pick and choose any and all and get to the kind of records that you want to see in a way that you wouldn't have been able to in the past, or you would have had to do this with many, many user-defined fields. Okay, if there's no questions, I'm going to jump to the address book and show you something similar. Let's say you're trying to do marketing and you're calling on customers and you want to know when was the last time you touched them. So we've created a field called last contact date, which you can edit. So I can come to Tommy here and I can, if I feel like it, you've always been able to do this, right? I can come in and say, I spoke to him yesterday. So put it in the 6th and that's it. And you'll notice that if I go to his company, let's do a refresh here. And let's add I'm going to say that the company was also talked to yesterday. Okay, so I'll do this. And I put in a calculation field. So we have a new type user-defined field called a duration. And I created a custom user-defined field at the bottom here. It's called days since last contact. And so I did two things. I took a system field called date of last contact, and I said, give me the actual age, not the nearest, in days, years, month, etc. And the reason I put this together is I just want to see who I haven't called. Then I can create a dashboard. It shows me the people that haven't been talked to in a month. Okay, so that in and of itself is helpful. This field was created mostly for financial advisors who have a lot around birthday, right? So they'd often put birthday in here. They'd create a user-defined field for birth date. I guess I don't have one here, or I had one, but you create a birth date field, and then you can actually set an actual or nearest, because some of the things you want to do is approaching the nearest date, and some of them are actual, in the days that you want, or the years. When they hit 62, something happens. When they hit 65, something else happens. When they become whatever age, you can now have things that get triggered. And I'm going to cancel out of that for a second and show you that within the search, if we add a duration field, like I'm going to add the field for days since last contact, the rolling range now is pretty smart. So when they become 62, when they're nearest to 62, when they will be this age by that date. And I'm going to defer to the manual for the specific definitions, but this lets you see, oh, these are the people I've got who are going to be 18 by this date, by their birthday. So they've added a new set of things. It used to be a rolling range. They still have that. Now they have return everything. It'll be this age by then. And they're just taking a number of days. So I saved that search and I created a dashboard over here. And the dashboard says who's not been contacted for over 30 days. So this 5, I'm going to click on. And up comes a list of 5 organizations who haven't touched in a while. So I'm going to go to the first one and I'm going to switch. So October 3rd was the last contact. And I'm going to go to Robert Bell. And I'm going to write a note about a call that I had with him today. So in comes the note. Good prospect, wants pricing and timeline. Okay, he's a good guy. I click OK. I set up a rule in my administrator that said you should update the last contact date when you make a note, and I said you should also update the companies. That's because if I've talked to one of the people here, I've certainly talked to the company. That helps me know this company is not on my dashboard anymore. So when I come in here and refresh, it goes down to 4. That's pretty neat. So let me show you where that came from. In the administrator, under preferences, address book. Last contact date, I made sure to check the ones that apply. When an appointment is made, when an email is sent out of Maximizer, when I make a call from the Maximizer make a call command, if an email is sent from Outlook with the add-in, or if a note is created, a manual note. I didn't think I would include an email campaign. I thought that was overkill. And then I did the checkbox to update the company when the contact got updated. That gives me a pretty good idea of who's being touched in my system. So from I like it from a marketing or account management perspective to make sure I don't have people who age out to, I don't know, 90 days or something. So for people who have, I don't know, A, B, C, and D clients, you may say that for my A clients, I never want no contact to be 30. For my B clients, I don't want it to be 100. For my C clients, 200. And for my D clients, once a year. Well, then you got these lists, and whenever there's a number in there, you need to make a phone call. Simple as that. So I wanted to make sure that we talked about the last contact date and the duration field because they kind of go together. This is the duration field of the last contact date. And you could do durations on other things, but the last contact date is a really good example that I like to show in this particular What's New webinar. So any questions about that? I think you guys are unmuted right now. Sure you're
Oh, hey, John.
Go ahead.
Just out of curiosity, does it give you the ability to toggle the colors back to the old version if you like that better?
You can't toggle back to the old way because they've made a lot of changes. So no, you can't, because it's not just the colors, it's other things, but no. The quick answer is there's not a setting for the colors, as there wasn't a setting for the colors in the prior version.
Okay.
Can it automatically notify you that someone hasn't been contacted in a certain amount of time?
Well, this is a dashboard, so I would say no, it's not automatic. Well, it's automatic if you look at the dashboard. If you don't look at the dashboard or don't run the search, then no. It's dependent upon you taking a peek at it because it's dynamic. Okay. It's not like it's sending an email at that time. That might be something they would do in the future. Let me just check in the wizard. There was a time where we had a setting. I think it's over here. Hold on. Alarm settings. So if I enable the alarm and I say the alarm level is 3, what it does is it just makes it red instead of blue.
Oh, okay.
So then if I come here and I, make one of my calls, I think I'd have to make 2 calls actually. So I'll just put 2 notes in. left message, and then I'll do another one down here. So if that gets me down to 2, then the color goes back to, yeah, black. And then if we age long enough that it grows up, then it'll start being red again.
Thanks.
Okay. So a couple of more things that I'll talk about.
I got a quick question.
Yeah, please do. Sorry.
Hi, John.
Hey there.
Michael Roach here. Can you set up triggers on people that haven't been touched in a certain amount of time?
So the kind of the same question. Out of the box, no. With a trigger mechanism like workflow or a SQL trigger or any number of other, like what is it called, the Vineyard Soft tools, you can monitor a query, and when you get it, you can send an email. The workflow stuff's very sophisticated. Like it can say, hey, I know I've triggered you already, so I won't send this again, or you can do repeats if you want. It's flexible, and other systems are a little more rudimentary, but those are not elements of those are elements you have today if you add the components that do that.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Hey, John?
No problem. Yeah, sure.
Hi, Craig Friedman. Have you done any tests using MailChimp? The integration
I'm going to
with
show MailChimp in a second. I have some live users of MailChimp, probably some of them on this call right now. So we're starting to do that. I'm going to show you a little bit of MailChimp in a moment, and I have to qualify it. The server you're looking at here is a Windows 2016 server, which is pretty new. And it's so new that the MailChimp thing wouldn't install on it. So when I show you the MailChimp, I'm going to minimize this server and show you the other one. That's one version back, but the Windows operating system supports it. So we do have MailChimp with this version. And unless you're running Windows 2016, which I don't think anybody is, it's really, really new, you would have no problem. So I'll show the MailChimp in a moment.
Okay. Last question is, I thought I saw where they also have integrated with Acuity scheduling. Can you confirm that?
I have to check. I saw that in the chat, and I do not know that they're integrating with Acuity. So I will have to find that out and get back to you.
Okay.
But I'm not familiar with it, so I would suspect they're not, because I think I would know of it by now. But there's always a possibility. So I'll email you that when I find out the answer.
Thank you.
No problem. I don't know how many folks have investigated or discovered the Excel reports. So this is an element of the product that came out last version, but maybe not everybody got into them. Let's go to opportunities, and I'll just show you a couple of things here. Reports. Okay, not the click and export to Excel, which I think most of you are very familiar with. But if you go down to Excel report, there's a bunch of what are called pivot tables here. So I'm going to do Opportunity Reports 2017. It's a bucket of reports that get pushed out. Actually, you know what? Let me do a bigger view. View all opportunities. I want a large view of data when I do this. So I'm looking up 184 opportunities. I'm going to Reports, Excel Report, and I'm picking this bucket, Opportunity Reports 2017, which is included with the product, so you get this. It makes an Excel file down at the bottom. In Chrome, it'll show up down here. And when I open it, I get an Excel file with macros. I say Enable Content, and I click Generate. This pushes those 184 rows into the report. And then any of these things I can click on and get a report. So each rep and how many opportunities they created over what time frame. Let's go back to the main list. There's some better reports here. I think it's created by time. This is like a bar chart. So you can see how many opportunities are getting created in any given day. So you could tell I was busy on certain days preparing for demos. And there you go. If this is something that you're interested in, one of the things that was somewhat challenging in past versions of Maximizer is that you had to change your column view here to be using the report view, this one. Well, I don't know, many customers didn't remember to change to that view, and then they ran the report and it would say it can't work. So in the administrator now, they have within the template library a place where you define every report. So if we go to the opportunities report, you can just tell the system, okay, this is the report, you add it from the file here, this is the column setup it uses, and this is the module it relates to. And then when you run it, it just knows. So you're not struggling to figure out, oh my God, how's this thing gonna work? It'll just run without error. So it seems like a weird thing that they probably should have done this in the beginning. They didn't get around to it, so I bring it up here. And this reminds me of one more thing. When you generate a calendar invite, it makes an email that it sends to your attendees. Well, you're now able to change what you've got in the in that email template. So this area here, this is the default. I'm going to click on it, and you can see how the default is built. We give you instructions, and then you can add your own, change this one. I would not go wild on this, because if you mess it up, then you're going to have messed up notifications. But this will let you create your own notifications for the calendar. And I'm going to cancel out without changing it. So I'm happy with it. You could also add other ones, and you could decide which one's the default when you send it out, or you can pick it as you send them. But that's a new feature that may apply if you have different kinds of reminders that you send out and you want different things for different purposes. There was a question about the partner portal. There's been no change to the partner portal that I'm aware of. I do think it's on the roadmap, but it hasn't changed yet. So let me take a few more questions. If there's anything within the product, like features in version 2017, let me know. And if not, I'm going to jump to the MailChimp and I'll show you that. So any questions sort of in this neck of the woods here? Okay. In that case, I'm going to minimize my little virtual machine. So this is another virtual that I've got, and I'm sitting on a record in the address book, and I have what's called a MailChimp tab up. This is an integration between Maximizer and MailChimp. So in concept, you have data in Maximizer, you have data in MailChimp, and you can sync them together. You can push all the data from Maximizer up to MailChimp. You can take a bunch of stuff in MailChimp and bring it down. If you have data in both places, you have a lot of cleanup to do to merge them together. Typically, MailChimp's sloppier than Maximizer. I wouldn't swear to it, but when we've done this, that's one thing that's come out for us. And when you look at these records here, below the contact in the MailChimp, it'll tell you how many campaigns you've sent to them, what's his rate of open, what's his rate of click, and then down here, what'd they touch? Oh, he went to the Twitter thing. Oh, he went to our website or to that landing page I put in there. Oh, look, he hit the Facebook thing. So as these mails come out and you do stuff, it watches what you do. And each person that you click on would have a different history. And the MailChimp will update according to who you're on. If you're on a record that doesn't have a MailChimp, it'll say there's nothing on this record. So I've been keeping it sort of at the bottom here because it gives me a better picture of the activity. Here we go. This is a different contact and just opened it. So if you're a user of MailChimp, you now can send out campaigns in MailChimp and see some of that activity in Maximizer and synchronize the contact data between the two. So you can push up data in Max. And what I've done here, if you look at this record, is I've created custom fields. So we have a unique identifier that comes over from MailChimp, and then I have groupings. So this grouping passes itself up into MailChimp, and I can say she's interested in pricing and technical. Well, that will go into MailChimp, and then you could make segments or groups out of that and send to those people only. So it's pretty helpful. Any questions about the MailChimp integration? So the only thing that is left is just a quick comment. There is also an integration with a tool called Zapier. It is only for the people who are hosted by Maximizer. This is not for people that have their own server. And the Zapier is a trigger and an action. When a trigger happens, an action takes place. The triggers are things like an email comes into my Gmail account or something external to Maximizer. And then Maximizer created some zaps that will write a note or add a hot list task or do something to the records. I've not had a lot of success with it yet in business practice. It works fine. It works the way it's designed, but the design is not such that it's been enormously compelling yet. We're hoping that they can flesh out more triggers and make it available to on-premise, in which case we'll be very interested in it. But those are the limitations at present. And that covers the full agenda that I had on tap for today. I'm available for any other questions, but I did want to respect your time and keep this to an hour. Do I have any additional questions?
Yeah, John, Craig Friedman again.
Sure.
I noticed in the sidebar you've got Acronis backup, and then you've got Dropbox. Is Acronis something that can be used to automatically back up your SQL database every day?
It sure could, but it's totally off topic because you just happen to be looking at the host server where I use Acronis like here for backing up the entire image of that drive and all the virtuals on it. And Dropbox is something I use to move huge amounts of files to someplace else besides here. I actually have 2 cloud backups just in case, and that's one of them. But they don't really relate to the CRM. But yeah, you could use this sort of stuff, and I'm happy to talk to you about it offline because I just don't think enough people would care. I have good things to say about both those companies. I think they're great, but they're not really related to the version of Maximizer. They're just general tools that happen to be on my desktop or background. Any other questions? I'm just going to scan the chat very quickly, but I think since we've kept it open. So thank you for coming in today. I appreciate that nobody put us on hold and made us all listen to hold music. That was smooth. If you have any questions or if anybody missed it, we're going to be doing another one of these on Thursday in the morning, and or we will make available a recording of this session that people can play back at any time. So thanks so much for your time and have a great day.
Thanks, John.